Hi, everybody. Thank you, Volcano, for having us. We are very excited to be here. We hope we do a good job. Thank you, Salvatore. Thank you, Joel, for letting me pick your brain a little bit. I'm just going to put my timer down here. So we're going to be talking today about the impact of innovation in telecommunications and digital inclusion. It's a very interesting topic. It's a topic that we can narrow down to a few insights, or we can do it as broad as possible. So we did have some discussions before to try to share with you different ideas about how the innovation in telecommunications, how the opportunities to impact more people, and how digital inclusion can be something very significant for the quality of life of people in our planet. So um, I heard the introductions before. I wanted to tell you I'm Jorge Eskenasy. I'm CEO of Comnet, a regional telecommunications company focused in B2B. I'm also president of Grupo Educativo del Valle and Guatemala Visible, which are two fabulous institutions that have a lot of impact in Guatemala. And as I heard Joel's presentation, I think they failed to mention something very interesting. And Joel currently resides in Mexico, but currently resides in Mexico in a cabin in the forest on the outskirts of Mexico City. So when I was reading about Joel's experience, and I figured whenever I think about Mexico City, I think about this 22 million population city, with all these buildings and all this traffic and all these roads. And then he turns out living in the forest. So that they're very interesting. So when you do your introductions, please do tell us a little bit about it. But I do want to give you a few details about what we're going to talk today, and that is innovation in telecommunications, conditions that invite investment, impact on productivity and development. We'll also try to look at this in the digital inclusion perspective. Let you know that there's 7.8 billion people in the world, and out of that, about 40% do not have a fixed connection or are not part of the digital world constantly. So that's about 3 billion people. So kind of the idea of today is talking about those 3 billion people. Latin America has less than 50% of the population with fixed broadband, but on the other side of that, over 80% of the population lives within the grasp of 4G telecommunications. So there's definitely a big opportunity of impact. So to start picking your brains, the idea is that first Joel and then Salvatore, if it's okay with you, will give us a little 3-minute introduction of what they're doing and a general idea of how they see the subject of today. And please, Joel, don't forget about telling us just a bit about the forest in Mexico City.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it's great to be here. Evidently, I was in Antigua when I was about 11 years old. My father informed me the other day, but I'd forgotten about it. But it's good to be back. So I am originally from Colorado, but I do reside in Mexico City, which is one of the craziest, largest cities in the world. But I live in the forest. It's true. It's kind of a cross between a cabin and a Hindu temple, and I'm not even sure what it is, but it's ahí en tu casa cuando quieren venir a México. Anyone else here from Mexico City? One person. Anyways, so yeah, I live. There's a national park outside of Mexico City called Desierto de Lones. So I live basically in the park. So anyways, there you have your home when you want it. But I guess quick introduction. When I think of technology, the amazing thing about it is it's always advancing, right? It's always getting better. But the other thing is it's always getting cheaper too. So when we think about connectivity and access, that's the good side. On the other side, the demand for more is always happening too, right? Because apps and people, we demand more. So what, I remember back in the day, as you can tell here, when you had a dial-up modem and that was enough. So the demand keeps increasing, but the technology keeps getting better and cheaper. But when you think about access, to me, it's coverage, it's giving access, giving the possibility to connect, but also making that easy, affordable, and like actually a good service. So that's what I do. I have a startup. I'm the founder called Siglo Internet. We've been around 18 months. We're very new, but it's all about focusing on what I call the emerging middle class, dense urban areas. Right now we're starting around Mexico City, but it's how can we connect people but make it affordable, make it fast enough, a good enough product, make it easy to pay for. So that's really what we're doing. Today we have about 7,000 homes connected and growing quickly, and hopefully one day we'll be in Guatemala too. So it's a pleasure to be here. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Thank you for Joel for that introduction. Now, Salvatore. Salvatore, you are the commercial director for Claro Central America, and I guess and you've been living in Guatemala City since February of this year, right? Yeah. So please don't tell me you live in the forest too.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like a penthouse Salvatore, I think.
Yeah. And I came from Colombia my last 20 years working with IBM and Claro. IBM first, after that the last 5 years with Claro. All my knowledge is about technology, inclusive. I'm new in communication, but the communication are still changing, and the goal is always change with the future. My expertise is in all the infrastructure and services and software, and there is the transformation that Claro is going to do. Everybody know Claro as a company for telecommunication when you talk about cellular phone. Behind that, we are the transactional company biggest in the world because we have the more subscribers in the world in all the 25 countries that Claro is. And all the calls, data, and transactions you make, we register. We have all that information. And the communication is just the way, but the transformation is all that we have behind. This is very important because we are now changing the way to make the business. That is an important information that we have. We are working with BI. We want to connect more people. We want to change the telephone communication. Maybe 2 years ago, we are fighting for a minute. Now we are fighting for a data. This all is in a transformation. And sometimes we ask, what is the future? That is important that Claro is working with all the partners, all the ecosystem. We are working with all the new solutions to bring for the market.
So I think this is going to be very interesting because we're going to get Joel's perspective from a startup that is trying to disrupt, making it easier, making it faster, and on the other hand, Salvatore's perspective with one of the largest telecommunications players in the world, trying to also have impact and grow that part of the 3 billion people that are not being part of this digital world. So I hope we get different insights from these different perspectives. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to start shooting some questions, direct questions to each of you. So I'll start with Joel. Can you tell us about the innovative and flexible business model that Siglo is presenting to the Mexican market, and what technologies you are focusing on for the future?
Sure. So I think there's 2 parts to that question. I think that what we're doing is, so first on the hardware side, I think that very strongly that the future is wireless. And the technology that we're deploying it's fixed wireless broadband, right? And I think that if we look at history, everything ends up wireless sooner or later. Now, just a couple of years ago, the technology wasn't there yet. I think just now, in the past couple of years, wireless technology can compete with fiber, and it's cheaper to deploy it, it's quicker to deploy it, and I think that holds a promise to get a lot more people connected in Latin America in the coming years. So that's on one side, on the hardware side. And then on the business model, what we're doing differently is we're taking a model that many people know very well in Latin America, especially the emerging middle class, and that is from the mobile side, prepaid. And we're making home broadband a prepaid service. So most of our users pay weekly. You know, they pay 110 pesos in Mexico, which is like $5.50 for unlimited access to internet, but they pay it as the week. So I think that's what we're doing, is thinking about, again, it's not just putting the infrastructure in, it's how do we make it really easy for people to get connected? How do we make it easy to pay for? How do we make it, let's break it down. And, when we first launched, it was just you could pay by the month. And we decided, let's take a little risk here. Let's let people pay by the quincena or by the week. And today, about 65% of our users pay 1 week at a time. So that's the kind of thing I think we're doing that's innovative to make it easy for people to get into good internet.
Very cool. So prepaid weekly broadband service at home. Very cool. So, so Salvatore, in your case in Claro, what technologies are you focusing on strategically, and what innovations are you investing in?
Thank you. Everybody know that we are now implementing 5G. This is the first one. Now in Claro, we have 500 sites implemented just in Guatemala. It's the new, faster network, and is the important thing is we can share with more devices. This is part of the 5G, but we have more than 5G. We are working with a new data center. The first one for Claro in Guatemala, but we have 7 in all the region in Latin America. In that data center, we are working with AWS, Amazon, Google, SAP, and inclusive we have the 2 biggest data center with Oracle in Colombia and Mexico. And we are working inclusive in Brazil. That is the first innovation that we have, because we have working with photonic communication to have low latency between the data centers and all the people. One of the important new business is BI. With BI, we are working with payment conduct for the peoples to make new analysis different from the banking. It's a new solution. Understand the mobility for the people, find new opportunities in the market as new opportunity to arrive to the people, to the correct people. Other point important is security. With all the information that we was talking to 5 minutes ago, we talk about cybersecurity, smart fraud prevention, smart security analysis. We are working to prevent that the people receive the fraud, working with different banks, with different solutions, and automation process. The presentation behind, they are talking about that, and the idea with Claro is born digital, not transformed to digital, it's born to digital.
Very interesting. And you're talking a lot about the security and how it will affect users. And we were discussing before with Joel how important it is not only to invest in the technology, but to analyze the user's experience and make the access and the connectivity and the different platforms be friendlier and with less barriers for them to be able to use it. I know that in Siglo you are focusing a lot in this user experience. Can you share with us some of that experience?
I think that the products the internet home broadband products that are out there by the big incumbents, because there's not a lot of them, right? But they were largely, I would argue, designed years ago, when at the time the consumer of that product was probably the top 10, 20% of the market, right? Those are the people that are actually going to pay for a fixed home service. And that was good. I mean, at the time, that's who it was. But fast forward to today, and I think things have changed a lot. I think there was a tendency where everyone started to realize they needed good internet at home. COVID happened, and one of the things that happened out of that accelerated the whole process. Everyone all of a sudden said, wow, it's not a luxury item anymore, it's a necessity. But what we did at Siglo is we said, okay, how can we design the product from the ground up with this kind of user in mind, that it's, and if you look at the traditional products, at least in Mexico, and I think it's probably pretty similar across Latin America, it's credit checks. It's a 12-month contract, an 18-month contract. It's, easy to pay if you have a credit card. It's, all of these barriers that are often insurmountable for a lot of people. It's hard to get in. So we decided to remove all that and make it really easy. There's no contract. You pay by the week. And with the idea that, and that scares, I think, the big telcos, because they think about, wow, it cost us this much money to connect this user between the, the hardware and the CAC, and it's like, oh, how do we recuperate that? Well, let's, force contract, 18 months. Then we'll recuperate our investment. But I think we thought about it like, okay, it's one of those things internet's addictive, right? Once you start to live the digital life, it's hard to go back. It's hard to turn that off. And if we give a good product, people are going to pay for it, and they're going to come back, and they're going to keep paying for it. So that's kind of the whole thesis that we have and how we built what we're doing. And it seems to be working. Our churn is low. People keep coming back, and they're paying for it. They need good internet. So that's how we're looking at it a bit differently. And I think that's really important. And I hope a lot of other companies start to look at it like that too, because again, we have a massive portion of the population that is still very underconnected. And we have to change that. And I think that we have to think about the way that we position and we build products.
Well, I think the thesis about this is to have a good product, like you're saying. I mean, if you have the good product, then, well, they may choose it every week, and every week will continue choosing it. And so maybe, Salvatore, I don't know if you have some reaction about what Joel is saying. How do you see this disruption technologies as a larger incumbent company, these new projects that appear, or these new ventures, how do you see them from the larger company perspective, considering that we still have to connect 3 billion people? So I guess it's an effort that not one company or one person is going to be able to solve, but we pretty much need to participate in this competition environment where we make it more affordable and let everybody participate. What would be your thoughts a little bit about what Joel is saying?
No, I think that this is a big cake, okay? Somebody have some part of the cake with different solutions for different customers and different needs. It's different when you talk about the needs in a university, in a bank company, in user home. It's all different, inclusive. All work together, but with different needs. For that is internet, for everybody, but with different needs anyway.
Yes, and I guess different needs will need a lot of different investments as well to be able to reach all this large market that we still need to participate in, because the truth is that as we close the gap of having everybody participate in the digital world, then we're able to have progress, development, and more opportunity. So continuing with you, Salvatore, studies say that transparency and predictability in laws and regulations would allow for if more than 50% additional investments or private investments to be made in technology in our region. So what do you think are the main conditions that our region and our countries have to have in order for the innovation and for the investments in technology to really happen and to continue, growing and to close that 50% gap that we still need to consider?
This is an important question because all that technology have a lot of investment. Okay, for that is very important the regulation and taxes because that's affect directly to the final customer, and that is important that the government have to work introducing new regulation, new capacities for the telecommunication company. The taxes are higher, and this is important if they can move that to make cheaper for the market. Um, Other thing that with the government is the main cities, the difference of investment is different than the rural cities, and that is important. And now we have the same condition for everybody, and it's the investment that you have to do in the main city is different because you have a big market. When you go to the rural sites, it's different because you have a market is small and the investment maybe is the same. For that, we can arrive to everybody, and we try to do because we have a commitment with the community. But but it's an investment that the telecommunication company make socially. Sometimes some cities, small city, uh, we lose money, but we have to arrive there because inclusive or principal customer that is maybe the big company need that we communicate that's people because they need to arrive there. The other thing is the international agreements. Now we're talking about cloud, about all the infrastructure, a virtual infrastructure for the people, and the international agreement that are not the best in the region. And we have to pay a lot of taxes with that because the solution of the expert are outside of countries, and we have to pay for that. For inclusive countries like US or Europe have more competitive than us because they have a big community. Inclusive, one city of the US have more people than all Central America. Okay, and our opportunities limited that the agreement that we have. That is important, and the investment risk.
Salvatore, can you put it closer?
See, and the investment risk are important because with the laws that we have a limit time to use the spectrum of with the government, and we have to pay and pay again for that. When you talk about the big countries, they have to pay, but they have that assurance that they will have business in the time. That is an important change that we hope for the investment have no in 10 or 20 years, is for life. That's the thing, the important thing that I think.
Yes, and you were mentioning, the cloud services for the people and other applications. And when we're talking about digital inclusion, we're not only talking about connectivity. Sometimes we just shape it as connectivity and maybe education, but it actually includes, people being able to do many things, commerce, prosperity, uh, being able to do banking, like we're looking here in the summit with fintech. So, Joel, many of the applications that we have seen in Volcano um, are focusing, in servicing big markets, being going to the base of the pyramid. But oftentimes we see some of these ventures ending up all fighting for the same, high-end market, maybe reaching a little bit of the middle market. So how do you see that with innovation and with investment, we can expand that the size of that pie, el pedazo, el tamaño del pastel? How do you think we can expand it?
Sure. I think that's a great question because I think about this a lot. There's a lot of capital flowing into Latin America recently, and that's great. That's what I've been in Latin America this time around for 7 or 8 years, and I've seen a lot happen since then. However, in fintech specifically, tons of money coming in because there's so much opportunity, and that's great. But I would argue that a lot of that ends up being used for, innovation that goes to the top of the pyramid again. Because and I get it, that's the low-hanging fruit, that's a good place to start. But how do you bring that down and begin to really have an impact? I think that's the challenge. And I think, you hear pitches from these fintech companies and they talk about the TAM, the total addressable market of Latin America. But the reality is it's just a fraction of that until we solve the connectivity issue. Because if people don't have connectivity, they're not going to be able to use that new banking app or access that credit or whatever it is. There was a Financial Times article not too long ago, but it talked about just this. And it was some VCs talking about how from here to 10 years from now, the ROI on the investment that's flowing in is really dependent on us solving the connectivity issue and getting the rest of the population connected so that all these products that are being made can actually, reach all of that market. So I think that's super important. We have to solve this connectivity issue.
So, Salvatore, if we solve this connectivity issue and we continue closing this gap, as it's been happening, because the gap is really closing every year, and not only in terms of coverage, but also of quality, of speed. But what is the benefit? What do we expect from it? The digital technologies, for what impact do they have in productivity, in development, in competitiveness for the markets?
I think that the market have to be hybrid. The new company have to be hybrid company. We need resource, we need people, but we need be virtual, be with the market without be there, because if not, our market is very small, and I think that is very important. And the opportunity to move to other parts have to be hybrid. Okay, we need resource, but we need to be on the access of everybody. The costs are very important. Okay, I think that the price is in the market. We have to work with the cost to be in the market. And finally, the opportunities. If we start with a lot of company here in Guatemala, but for sure, nobody are thinking that Guatemala is the market. Nobody think that the market is just the country or the city that we are. We need to move to bigger market. We can be present physically in all the markets in the world. We need to be communicated to arrive to all that market.
Yes, it's a global it's a global challenge, and it's a global opportunity. So I'd like some final statements from you guys, and what I would like to ask you is, how do you see it in 10 years or in 20 years? Let's say 10 years. How do you see it in 10 years? The impact of the innovation in telecommunication, and also how it's going to close this digital adoption of the rest of the world. And if you can start, Joe.
Sure, in 10 years. I think that I look a lot to the banking world and the fintech revolution that's beginning to happen here. And I think about how 5 years ago or 7 years ago, I would have never have imagined that an industry like banking could be disrupted. There's a few big players, big moats around them, regulation, and we're seeing that. It's happening. It's being disrupted. And in Mexico recently, one of the big players just left. I like to think that they thought, wow, it's not gonna be so easy now. I don't know the real reasons, I can't speak for that, but I like to think that. And I think that the same thing is gonna happen in the telecom space. I think that, there's a lot of big incumbents, great companies, nothing against them, but I think that traditionally, historically, to really see change, we have to see disruption. And we need to see new business models, and we need to see a lot of players coming in. And I think the same thing's gonna happen in telecom that happened in banking. So I hope there's a lot more companies doing what we're doing. I'll be honest, venture capitalists, they're not really big on telecom. Maybe they were burned in the US on that years ago. I'm sure there's some VCs here. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but VCs, they like to follow. And they see something hot because the other investors in it, and everyone piles in. But I think that telecom, the smart ones, are realizing that, wow, we have to solve this connectivity thing, and there's going to be there's going to be a few players that are going to be huge winners. But we have to do that to make all this other stuff make sense. So I think that we're going to see a lot of disruption, a lot of new players. The big ones will still be around, and they'll have a big part of that. But I think there's going to be a whole wave of new telcos emerge. That's what I think.
Salvatore,
I
10
think that
years.
is a very difficult prediction. Okay, that's the market changed too fast. Okay, but I think that obviously will be an exponentially impact the telecommunication in all the world. Wireless will be the main communications. Okay, all the cable was not in our life, inclusive the electricity. They are working to make wireless. Everybody will work in the same network. Now we have different networks or different platforms. I think that we will be, as internet unify, internet have different internet. In the future, I think that will be just one network. The communication will be immersive. Nobody will be needs a devices to be communicated. The communication was behind us with our eyes, with our face, with all the new ways to communicate, with different servers behind. And we will connect it all the time. If you want or if you don't want. Okay? It's like to be your ID. Everybody will be. I think that is the future.
So no doubt it's going to be very exciting. A lot will be coming. There's a lot of innovation, IoT, AI, metaverse, all the biotech. So hopefully we'll have the rest of the 3 billion, being active in the digital world. So I want to thank Salvatore from Claro. I want to thank Joel from Siglo. You've been very insightful, and you answered all of my questions. So I'm very happy that we got through these 30 minutes. And thank you, everybody, for staying here with us and not leaving. So I hope you have a great day and continue enjoying the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.